Welcome to Propel Education, the podcast where we explore how schools and educators are reimagining what it means to lead, connect, and make an impact. Whether you're a teacher, an administrator, or just someone passionate about schools, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Inger, and together we're diving deep into the stories, strategies, and sparks that are shaping schools and classrooms across the country. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's propel education forward. Welcome to the Propel podcast, the podcast where we explore how schools and educators are reimagining what it means to lead, connect, and make an impact. Whether you're a teacher, an administrator, or just someone passionate about schools, you're in the right place. I'm your host, Inger, and today we're diving deep into the stories, strategies, and sparks that are shaping classrooms across the country. So grab your coffee, settle in, and let's propel education forward. So thank you so much for being here today with our guest. We're talking about the fastest ways to scale personalized learning in the education profession and the students it applies to. So today's guest embodies the vision. Mrs. Shanina Draughn has been recognized by Influence Digest as one of the top 20 career coaches in Detroit, and for good reason. With over 15 years of experience, Shanina has designed and led innovative, inclusive, and research-backed programs that strengthen both academic and emotional growth for students and families. As a former lead dean of operations and culture for K-12 schools, she's not only trained and supervised over 100 educators and administrators, but also has achieved measurable transformation, including a 40% reduction in suspension, which I want to get into because that's amazing, and referrals within just 1 year. Her work centers on empowering educators to cultivate what she calls the bold educator mindset, a mindset rooted in confidence, compassion, and community. She believes that when teachers lead with presence and integrity, schools can shift from managing behavior to nurturing belonging, which is so important right now in the culture and climate we're in. Shanina, welcome to the Propel podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
So I'd love for you to tell people a little bit about you, who you are, and your background. And thank you so much for taking the time to be here today.
Thank you so much for having me. A little bit about my background. I am that urban school kid. I was the kid that had an IEP. I was the kid that could not read by the grade, third grade, which is an essential grade. You must learn how to read because at that time, there's a lot of critical changing happening with fourth, fifth, and sixth. So you fall behind. And I remember specifically Miss Smith, my fourth grade teacher, telling me really boldly, "You're going to learn today." I grew up with a very difficult household. Mother was all over the place, had attendance issue, but it
Wow.
was that teacher, Miss Smith, the boldness that she had, in spite of me not being able to blend words, because that was the issue. Understanding the letter sounds, but using the letter sounds and using it to a way where it empowers you to learn how to read. Because reading is part of confidence, and reading is also skill. And I had a confidence issue. And so my background started there, just growing up in a setting, being the first generational Black woman in my family to graduate from high school, then college, and then get a master. But it started from the story of Miss Smith and what she did for me. And so I always go back to that because teachers have a greater impact. And I think they don't understand the greater impact because they don't understand what their impact is. So I like to unpack that boldness. I like to unpack what does it mean to not only create change, but be that person in front of that student you see for an entire year to empower them to take more responsibility of what they're learning. So that's my background. I've been in a lot of different places. I've been in nonprofit, I've been in education, I've done the dean of students for a while, as well as the school leadership.
So, you talk about helping teachers and leaders cultivate a bold educator mindset, and you talked about the impact of one teacher in your life, and oftentimes it is that one teacher that changes everything for us. So, what does that mean inside the school buildings that you're in, and how are you using that to transform classrooms and school culture?
Well, understanding boldness, believing in your teaching ability, it starts there. I think a lot of teachers have a lot of tools, there's a lot of curriculum, but many of them don't believe what they're actually teaching. So,
Mm.
in order for you to believe it, you have to show up for it. And so, being bold has to do with two things. One, do you believe in what you're teaching, and how are you pumped up about it? Are you excited about it? We support teachers. I support teachers, not just academically, but social and emotionally. We give those tools about building their self confidence on their toughest days. And so, how do you embrace a unique class with all these different challenges? You have to set yourself up for success. So, you have to start with the work within yourself. Kids are going to trigger you. A lot of times there's unresolved issues. We have unhealed teachers, I say, and they're in front of human beings that are triggering them all day. And so, how do we really compact that as we teach teachers how to take care of themselves and create opportunities for them to be bold enough to say, hey, I'm having a hard day, I'm having a challenge. So that's the second thing, is to embrace and create change. We got to overcome these educational barriers. What education means today is not the same it was 10 years ago or 20 years ago. We have to think it out. We have to build the courage in them. We have to be innovative. So that's why I'm a Montessori school leader now. I used to work in a traditional practice for many years, and I love learning how to be the head of a school, of a Montessori school. It's in Warren, Michigan, called Macomb Montessori Academy. And we allow teachers to create lessons. We allow teachers to bring themselves. Now we have a framework and we have the materials, right? But they have to bring themselves. They have to jump in that and get creative and embrace where the students are at. In the Montessori model, we follow the child. We allow that child in the development stage. So it's a little different in traditional practice, but traditional practice can do this as well, small group. Being innovative of how the teacher intakes that material and actually not have to just read it script by script. That's really hard for teachers because they know their students really well, but sometimes they feel like they're not being heard by administrators saying, hey, I have 5 different levels, but you really want me to teach this lesson? How do we give them the power to diversify that lesson to meet different levels? That's
Yeah.
the exciting work. What has happened in education is that teachers don't feel empowered enough to
Hmm.
show up.
Yeah.
They're controlled. Okay, let's be
Yeah.
clear. They're
Yeah.
controlled, and
Absolutely.
they controlled by the content they teach.
Yeah.
Creativity has been sucked out of learning,
Yeah.
and so that's top down. If the superintendent's doing it, the principal's doing it, the teachers are doing it, what do you think the kids are doing? Acting
Yeah.
out, because kids don't want to be controlled in teaching.
Yeah.
They want to be thinking. They want to interact. They want to get
Yeah.
up. They want to
Yeah.
say what they believe.
Yeah.
And if we don't allow kids to do that, because the teachers say, be quiet, sit down, and we as administrators say, nope, you got to follow this.
Yeah.
We are doing a chain of silence in education right now.
Yeah. Well, I love that what you said about the confidence and the foundation of what you're building, and the difference between a Montessori setting and a traditional school setting is that it's really really cultivating that transformative social emotional learning space. And you're lifting up both teachers' understanding and equipping them with like the belief that they can do the work with the students.
Yeah.
And I just want to speak a little bit about what are some specific ways that you help educators build that sense of confidence in their teaching practice, right? Because it's really different. Like, how did you transform from the traditional setting into the Montessori? Having spent probably decades in the traditional setting where you're like, sit down and the teachers are teaching to standards and everyone's stressed out and you're looking at data, but that there's a story behind the data. And how do you bridge that now in this new setting? And how long have you been in this Montessori setting? I wanted to ask you that. How long has it been since you transitioned from the traditional school setting into the Montessori? And our background is in Montessori. Both my husband and his mom was a Montessori director in Pennsylvania, and she traveled all over the country training
Yes.
Montessori teachers. She just retired a few years ago, and we hope that our baby, our only one, will go to Montessori. So I'm just
Yeah.
so intrigued by the whole Montessori curriculum, the flow of a classroom, the calmness, and the hum of students and the kids just
Mm.
moving with confidence. There's a confidence in kids that have been to Montessori, I feel like. And I just really love it. So can you speak a little bit to that, both in students and in the practice of teaching teachers and setting up the conditions to create that atmosphere?
Absolutely. So I have been doing this for 4 years. I'm actually in Montessori training myself as an administrator with AIS, AIMS. They have so many acronyms, different levels.
Yeah,
And so this is my fourth week in training, so I'm still learning a lot. But
nice.
one thing that I would say that we can all take from Montessori is how to build a critical thinker.
Yes.
The workplace want people to think for themselves. They want collaborators. They want people that can be able to engage, hold conversation, and they definitely want people to have confidence in what they're doing.
Yeah.
Well, it starts with the teachers. So one of the things I do with teachers is I really build on this understanding of their teacher superpower, right? So you
Mm,
start with people's strengths in Montessori. What are they good at? What is your
mhm.
strength? And from there, you'll find out a lot about a teacher. Like they're dynamic with math, or they may be really good with their hands, or they're creative in how they process information, can put a lesson plan together. They're really good with organizing people and organizing groups. So we do a lot of collective and collaborative building. You may have a teacher assistant and a Montessori lead teacher or facilitator working together on their strengths. And then you may have two grade levels. We right now in my current situation, we have our fourth and fifth grade teacher collaborating, and one is teaching math and one is teaching ELA. That's not unusual now, but sometimes we're just so isolated in our classroom. What we gather from that is she's dynamite, my teacher in math, and she not only understands the scores, which I'm sure we'll get into, but how to take the scores, whatever that looks like, and still use the curriculum that we have to empower kids to understand the end in mind. So a lot of times when we're teaching, we start with the standard, which is fantastic. You know, this is what you have to learn in first grade or second grade. That's really not the issue. We really need to start with the end in mind. What do you want this kid to learn? And so, with that said, a lot of times Montessori set us up for that. We talk about the objectives and the strength. We talk about what materials. We teach in small groups. Then we do this thing called less practice. I do the same thing for my teachers. We sit down, we look at the lesson plan, we roll out that communication. I don't understand this. Can you give me some feedback on that? They go practice whatever they need to do. We do have a Montessori coach in my building, which is essential because I'm still learning. And I do think one of the things that we need to do is layer that support for leaders as well. A lot of things fall on principals and assistant principals, but they need support and they need that reinforcement. So the Montessori coach gives us that. So we are not only just lesson planning together, we allow them to create and give feedback, right? Feedback is so important. A lot of time in education, we're just telling kids what to think, but we don't ask them what you think of that. Do you understand what I said? Give me what your thought is on this. We just kind of pour it in and take a test. And that's why you have a significant disengagement. So one of the things I really try to tell my teacher is, how do you show up? What can you bring to the table? What is your teacher's superpower, right? And let's start that engine by moving forward and learning what this teacher journey is about. Because if you don't enjoy what you do, and if you don't love what you do, like, I mean, love it with your whole heart in front of those kids and get excited about it, right? The kids they'll play you like, she ain't here
Yeah.
to teach. He's not here to
Yeah.
teach. And
Yeah.
they will feed off that energy. And that's
Yeah.
when you see a lot of behaviors. That's when you
Yeah.
see a lot of disengagement
Yeah.
because kids don't care how much you know until they know that you care.
Yeah.
Not
Is
only
that
about
true?
them, about the content. Okay. It's like
Yeah.
me talking to my boss. She's like, okay, that's great. But I know she's not listening to me,
Yeah.
and I'll say
Mhm.
something. And it's so kids are not much different. They're really good fillers on how they communicate. And so moving that boldness starts with the teacher journey. And so I always tell teachers, what is your superpower? What can you bring to the table? Let's start with your strength.
Well, and one of the things I also wanted to touch on is the discipline issue. I mean, I know that traditionally, when I've been in Montessori settings, discipline isn't necessarily a huge issue for those settings because kids are up moving around, because there's this sense of culture, of climate of belonging, because the structure of the classroom is really conducive to student learning. And there's not the expectation of students sitting for 6 hours a day and a teacher at the front of the room just talking to them and then moving them through different activities. And so when you speak to like the discipline and you speak to like the culture of the school, can you talk a little bit about how you helped your schools achieve a 40% reduction and suspension and how you set up the dynamics of us? I mean, if somebody's watching and they're like, how do I bring maybe Montessori practices into my traditional school setting, right? Where it could actually maybe help reduce some of the suspension and the disciplinary issues that students are facing with teachers who may not have as much instructional support, right? Sometimes you
Right.
find the newest teachers in the most high need classrooms, mostly with kids of color. And that's a real challenge for a lot of teachers. And so their schools don't have the resources and they don't have the supports and they definitely don't have a coach to
Right.
be, to be by somebody's side to help support them. So what does that look like? Could you just give somebody some ideas about maybe some things that they might be able to bring in other than going and getting trained as a Montessori teacher,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, absolutely.
Um,
Because that's a
yeah.
whole nother ballgame getting trained. So my last district that I worked with for 10 years, that's when the 40%, as the head dean of students, my job was to reduce the suspensions with the principals. And my job in an urban school environment that was 1,200 students, K through eighth grade, was to try to understand what is happening. So we assume that kids come ready to learn. We assume that kids understand behaviors and what's expected. And so one of the things that we did, and I always tell school districts and leaders that struggle with discipline, is really understand the structures. Much research and much support you put in for academics, you have to put the same in for social emotional support. I mean, you can no longer these days make academics outweigh SEL
Yeah,
situations. You're
absolutely.
setting yourself up for success, and well, not being successful. So the way you set yourself up for success is find a strong SEL program. We use conscious discipline. We went to training as a team. We invest in what matters. So if you're having discipline issue, if it's a culture and climate issues, if your teachers are way down, invest in that. Make it a journey. The first year we implemented, the second year we worked it, the third year we worked it. Did everybody buy in at first? No, but it's a lot of work, just like any other academic program. So we invested in social emotional learning. It was conscious discipline. We really just focused on one of those elements, which was breathing, teaching a child how to breathe. We would tell kids even now in my current school, be a star. Smile, take a deep breath, and relax. If
Yeah.
you go to Macomb Montessori Academy right now and ask the kids to be the star, they know exactly what it is. It
Mm,
was just that one indicator, and we drove it on morning announcements, posters, assemblies, everyday conversation. Are you breathing? Are you being a star?
yeah.
And it becomes contagious.
Yeah.
It becomes contagious when you're obsessed with something and you keep pushing it. Then the
Hmm.
kids are like, they'll even ask me as the principal, Miss Shanina, they can see it in my face. Be a star. Are you breathing? I'm like, oh, thank you, child. I
Don't you love
needed
when they
that right
repeat it
now.
back to you? You're like,
Right. They give it back to me. So it's like, oh my God, it's working. And so start with the basic and then work your way up as it relates to that social emotional learning. Then we did do class classroom management training. We did time to teach, which is a program that I'm trained in, and we taught just simple behavior strategies. We spend so much time correcting that we forget that we still are a school and we have to teach. So, what strategies can we do really quickly to help reduce the blurt outs, the talking back, the out of your seat, pretty much the minor that add up, right? How do we just kind of like reduce that? And so there was some training and support. And then we monitored and we tracked over time. And in a 3 to 4, maybe 3.5 years, that happened. It wasn't 40% overnight, but it was a lot of intentional work. So what you focus on is what you get more of. Okay. And so with that, if you focus on understanding, even with the parents, we educated them what was conscious discipline. We had assemblies, we invited them, we sent a
wow.
lot of information home. And
Yeah.
so it became a part of our culture. And that is what you have to do. When you have calm minds, then you will have stronger minds in order to learn. You cannot learn in chaos. You cannot
Yeah.
learn with screaming and hollering in unsafe environments.
Yes.
So the academics will come, but you have to have calm classrooms. And in
Yeah.
Montessori, we do have behavioral problems. I don't know why people say that. It's
Yeah.
sometimes it's a little bit overwhelming because you're like trying to move, but there's a lot of structure with limits. It's freedom with limits. We're not controlling the kids like robots. We give them choices and they're more open to that versus me telling them what to do every 40 minutes and
Yeah.
hope.
Absolutely. So how can you talked a little bit about the parent piece, which I love because I've spent 2 decades working around parent engagement in the school districts in Oregon, with one specifically with the largest school district in Oregon. And can you talk a little bit about like how you engage with the parents around the process of Montessori and like your vision for the conscious discipline plan and implementation, like inviting them in so that they could be true partners in the process?
So we do have parent universities. We host them once a month, and those parent universities are sent out early. We invite them to come in. The first one is what is Montessori, and we give lots of materials. Montessori materials are expensive, so we try to find ways that they can do things at home or they can find in another store on Amazon for really cheap. It's not the material itself, like it has to be wood or a certain look. It's what you do with the material. You can take popsicle sticks and label them and sort them. Okay. So it's not the materials, how you use the materials. And then we do social emotional, we do conscious discipline. The first conscious discipline we really focus on is composure, helping kids understand. But we tell our parents that are overwhelmed, You yelling and screaming at your kids is not helping either. You have to use some of these tools at home. So here in our classroom, we have a thing called the peace corner or the safe place. Do that at home. Here is the materials. Here's the worksheets. Here's some, when your kid is having a fit at home and they're struggling, self-regulation starts at a very early age. Letting kids scream and holler and making them calm down is
Yeah.
not healthy for the brain. It
Yeah.
actually puts it in survival mode to the point where the brain goes, it doesn't know how to calm itself down. So the earlier you can teach them, one, two, three, four, you will have a more self-regulated kid when they come to kindergarten or preschool. And so the work is hard when they're younger. 2 and 3 year olds are difficult because they love to get their way as it relates to what they're saying, right?
Yes.
But they don't have the full language to say, "Hey, I'm hungry right now and you're moving too slow. Can you help me out, sister, mama,
Yeah.
daddy?"
Yeah.
So they're going to scream until they get it. So how do you work through that? So telling the parents, one, take care of yourself. Two, use one of these resources. So the Parent University has helped us set up for success. We also have tons of engaging event. We just went to the zoo the other day. Lots of engagement events, how we bring each other in and celebrate each other. The zoo may seem very simple. However, it's a family engagement activity that brings us together to have really great community conversations. So there's so many different ways you can work with your parents. But again, all of this work is intentional. And in the beginning, it's a lot, but once you set it up and you have systems, you'll understand the impact, by year, month by month.
I do want to kind of close with just thanking you for your insight and reminding us, that real transformation around education begins with courage. And that's what I heard throughout your story, the courage to step in, to step up, and to truly be a leader in the spaces that you're in with your teachers, and to truly believe that you can create an environment where both teachers and students can thrive. And so I would love to ask you the final bell question, which is a reflective question to leave our readers with something to inspire them, right? So here it is. If every educator listening could take one small intentional action tomorrow to create a more connected and confident classroom, what would you want that action to be? Or what would you encourage them to do?
I would encourage educators that are doing this amazing, exhausting, powerful work is to start within. When you know what's going on within and you're able to heal that, work on that, really organize and unpack that over time, your impact is greater. It's okay to have a bad day. It's okay not to understand everything. But it's not okay not to take care of yourself. It's not okay to sacrifice everything for teaching and be so exhausted that to the point where you don't know how to show up for yourself. When you show up for yourself and do the within work, then you're able to have a greater impact in front of kids. And that's what we need. We need healthy teachers in order to have healthy kids.
I love that. Everything you said was so lovely. I want to thank you so much for being here today, for taking time, for hanging out with Elliot and I, and being a leader in education. Because I know that we're in a new season and it is not easy. And what matters most is, I think, connection and creating that culture of belonging. And so, where can people find you if they're inspired and they're like, "Oh, I need to connect with her. She was dropping jewels throughout. Like, I want to connect. I want to learn about conscious discipline. I want to learn about all of these things." What would that look like?
So I have an amazing website called buildreachteach.org, buildreachteach.org. That's one word. A lot of the resources that I explain is there, along with my background. You can find me on LinkedIn, Shanina Draughn, um, and Macomb Montessori Academy in Warren, Michigan. You can check us out there. We have an amazing Facebook page. There's a lot of examples on the Facebook page because social media keeps us connected on the things that we do every week. So there's a great way of seeing evidence and seeing it work. It takes a lot of work, but I'm here to help and support in any way I can. I believe in this work, and I know we're in a stressful time in education, but I believe crisis like this presents an opportunity for growth. So reach out. I'm here to help.
So well said. So with that, I hope that you subscribe to the channel, stay updated on our episodes, and connect with Shanina when you can, because she's got great information. And please go to our website and visit. And until next time, keep leading with purpose and propelling education forward. See you.